Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hamilton Report. I'm Scott J. Hamilton, Executive Director of the Oklahoma Democratic Party, and I'm very, very happy that you've committed to spending half an hour with us this evening. Each week, we cover one topic in particular of interest to Democrats in Oklahoma and progressive folks everywhere. And I want to thank my guest last week, Phil Cross, who did a great job in explaining the challenges of fairly reporting on politics in a largely red state. It was a great conversation. And I encourage you to go back and check it out. If you happen to have missed it, you can always see our previous episodes at okdemocrats.org/YouTube. Tonight, we are taking a bit of a detour. This is not an entirely political topic, but it's one that I find very, very disturbing nonetheless, and one I think that we should point to and begin to look at. In our country, we've talked a lot about sports, particularly college football and professional sports, and how they must continue, they must go on, but not nearly as much has been said nor attention paid to what I believe are other very, very important elements of our society, our culture, and that is the performing arts. Right now, I read recently that the most recent figure is that the economic impact because of the COVID-19 virus on performing arts is $13.9 billion. That's B with a B, great big B, $13.9 billion. So tonight we're going to look at what that means to one professional theater company here in Oklahoma, and also what it means to an individual who makes his living in the theater, particularly with the Metropolitan Opera in New York, who announced just a couple of weeks ago that they are canceling their entire 2021 season and won't schedule anything before the fall of next year. Having said all that, it's my privilege to present my first guest for the evening. He's a man that I've had the pleasure of calling friend for some time now. Interestingly, we met here in Oklahoma, although we spent many years living and working in New York at the same time. It wasn't until we were both here that we met and became friends. I've had the opportunity to interview him on other occasions, particularly with regard to productions of the Oklahoma City Repertory Theater. And so it's my privilege tonight to welcome the founding artistic director of CityRep, my good friend, Donald Jordan. Don, welcome to the Hamilton Report.
Hi, Scott. Good to talk to you again, old friend.
I would have been very disappointed had you worn anything besides your overalls tonight. Because
I'm proudly in my uniform.
And that is your uniform.
Well, you know that the kids at the staff at the theater some years ago nicknamed me, I think affectionately, the theater hurricane overalls. So, and now if I don't wear them anywhere, people really think that I'm an imposter.
I'm sure they do. You know, and I need to share with our audience that it was just announced. I read this a couple of weeks ago that you have announced your retirement next year from.
Yes. At the end of this current season, however fragmented the season is, 2021, we have just announced a committee. We're undergoing a national search for my successor. You know, it's got to be someone with a weak mind and a strong back and a high threshold for pain. And we hope to have them in place by July 1st, which is the start of next season. And then I will become founder, artistic director emeritus, and that is Latin for put out the pasture. After 25 years, it's time for a breath of fresh air.
So now maybe you can finally go to the theater.
Yeah. Well, the nice thing is when I go, I won't worry if anything happens. I'll think that's not my problem. I don't have to fix it.
Absolutely.
I do hope to still be of useful service and of meaningful service and carry on without the day-to-day responsibilities, which, as you know, are very challenging for nonprofits in the best of times. I hope that I'll be able to perhaps continue directing, designing, maybe even act a little more again, and continue with the master classes. I really enjoy helping the young artists kind of get their feet on the ground and get started. So I will do that, but at a slower pace and without what's left of my hair being on fire.
I should tell our folks that you are joining us tonight from your home in Dallas.
Yeah.
And for these last many years, you have worn out a lot of tires going back and forth between Dallas and Oklahoma City. And I will say that as challenging as that has had to be on you and your lovely wife, it has been to the benefit of people here in Central Oklahoma because of your contributions.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to move straight now into the heart of what we're talking about tonight, Don. And that is the impact that this pandemic has had on the performing arts. It wasn't long ago where we could choose what we wanted to do, whether we wanted to see a ballet or go into a theater to watch a dance concert, hear a jukebox musical, or see a serious play, a new play by a new playwright, or one that we've loved for years. And now all of those options are off the table when it comes to physically attending a performance in a theater. And this has had to be very difficult financially for CityRep this time, but also I would think pretty demoralizing for all of the good folks who have spent so many years and so much heart building a professional theater company. Yes,
it's been challenging for us on the micro level, and we are just the very embodiment of the entire American performing arts and professional theater. It's we had a season chosen for this year, which they were all American or all women playwrights to celebrate the 100th anniversary of women getting the right to vote. Now, it was going to be the entire season. We're going to start with Anne, the wonderful play about the former governor of Texas. And of course, we've had to cancel the entire season. We hope to be able to maybe start another season in the fall of 21. And that, of course, is highly dependent on those hardworking women and men right now in labs around the country. I spend a couple of hours every day reading about the latest developments every morning in what's going on in the theater business. And now I add what's going on in the medical development with the vaccine potentials for COVID. We had to stop for the common good and for the public health. It's the right thing to do. But when you hear about other industries that talk about how severely impacted they have been, and they have been, and my heart goes out to them all. Mm-hmm. You have a restaurant and you can only do takeout, or you have an airline and you can only fill half the seats. Well, the American theater is closed. We're not diminished. We don't have a takeout of Act Two. You can't, we are simply closed. And the economic impact of that is enormous. There are developments happening even just this week. Professional American actors earn their health insurance through the weeks that they work and the contributions that come from the various producers of the shows they do. That pays for 88% of the health insurance for American actors. And there are zero contributions coming in because there are no plays. So the entire health insurance structure for American professional actors is just one example, is entirely at risk, and they're trying to figure out some way for it to just not go bankrupt. It's a kind of crisis we have not faced since the AIDS crisis in the late 80s and early 90s, when the costs went so high in the treatment for AIDS as it came along. And in this case, it's not that the costs have gone so high, it's that there's now zero income coming in. The arts, as you well know, is an $887 billion a year segment of the American economy. That's larger than the entire transportation segment. And while the airlines have gotten $50 billion and other groups, which again, we need to do more for all of them. This is the rainy day for which you borrow. But the arts have not yet been helped. And if that help isn't forthcoming, much of the structure of professional arts that we have built for the last half century for our nation will crumble over the course of the next several months.
That's devastating, because our public schools, my first exposure to professional theater was when I was in grade school. My first exposure to a symphony orchestra was a school outing. Well, now these things haven't existed for a long time, in our public education system. But at least parents could still take their kids to a concert or see a ballet or to watch a play. And right now there is none of that. So honestly, this is something I think that while it's impacting everyone right now, particularly the artists, it's also impacting those patrons of the arts who invest a lot of their own heart into it, and actually generations to come if we don't expose these young people to as many performing arts as we can right now. Don, I'm going to ask you to stay with us for a moment, and we'll talk again in just a little bit. But I want to bring in my next guest now. He is someone who made his professional debut on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera. He went on from there to star in La Cage for 5 years on Broadway, and has done many, many things within the performing arts. And I'm very happy that he could join us this evening from his home in New York City. Eric Lamp, welcome to the Hamilton Report.
Thanks so much, Scott. It's wonderful to see you. Wonderful to be with you.
I'm glad that you could make time for us this evening. We were just talking to Don about the impact of this virus on professional theater. I'd like to bring that down to a very personal level. I know that the Met already has lost $13.9 million this year. I'm sorry. It's $150 million.
I was going to say that sounded very low.
Yeah, $150 million this year, and 1,000 employees have been furloughed since April the 1st. So you are a man who makes a living in the performing arts. New York City is not an inexpensive place to live.
No, it's not.
So give us a sense of what it's been like for you personally in this time, Eric.
Well, I can tell you that first and foremost, to give you an idea, as soon as COVID hit, within a month, I had lost over $10,000 worth of work. Gigs that just dropped one after the other. Gigs as a performer, gigs as a costume designer, gigs as a wardrobe person that just dropped because obviously we couldn't perform live. You talk about the economic engine. People don't understand in New York City, as important as the sporting community is and the sporting business is, the entertainment arts vastly surpass it in economic engine. And we are in limbo. All of our regular jobs are not able to be performed because unlike Europe, unlike other places where there's been a governmental focus on finding a way in which to possibly make performances happen, we're left to our own devices. We're doing performances online. We're, that incredible entrepreneurial spirit of the artist. We are trying to find ways in which to make our art. But for example, I used to sing 4 to 5 services every weekend in temple and churches. That wonderful communication, that wonderful one-on-one with persons in the room. And also it was my living. I was able to make a very nice living, live comfortably in New York. That immediately stopped. I personally am rather lucky because my husband, who is also a long-term theater professional as a wardrobe and shoe master of New York City Ballet, he is retired, so we do have a pension and benefit. But I was contributing at least a third to more than that of our annual income, and that is gone. So yes, in some ways, staying home all the time, cooking for yourself, all of that does take care of some of your day-to-day expenses you used to have. But then again, that's not why one moved to New York. One moved to New York for the stimulus, for the excitement, for the crashing together of communities that build so much energy, and this very, very unique thing that then funnels into the various economic engines of New York. That's all gone. And I don't see, unfortunately, a huge effort in order to find a way to bring that back quickly. We don't know. There are certain Broadway shows that are supposedly going to open in the spring. We don't know if that's true. The Met was going to open in January. I have lots and lots of friends who still work there. Very dear friends of mine, manager of the chorus, many friends in wardrobe, many friends in the chorus, many soloist friends. They just found out that the fees that they were hoping to get are not going to be coming in. So there is this very sense of numbness and also of devastation, while at the same time you see exciting things happening online. People figuring it out, teaching yourself how to set up your own vocal studio, your own recording studio, trying to make work happen. But it's not the same thing as having full-time work.
You know, I agree with what you're saying. I think that there's been a lot of wonderful creativity that's been demonstrated.
Here's a result from search
throughout this, because we've seen like living room concerts, and there was a wonderful Sondheim tribute that everyone did from their homes.
Mm-hmm. That was fantastic.
It was. But it's not like sitting with someone in the theater watching something live.
Yes.
That's I'm going to bring Don back in. Don is doing anything remotely, Zooming, anything like that. Is that something that was ever considered by CityRep in the middle of all of this?
Yes. What we have done right now over the course of the spring was we tried to continue our focus on service. So we had live Facebook events where we had counselors and brought back our cast member from Every Brilliant Thing so that we could have people, if they needed an outlet for the kind of emotional frustration and difficulty everyone's facing in this most challenging year. And then we were a part of the Steinbeck, the National Steinbeck celebration, the annual Steinbeck celebration, because we had been a part of that 75th anniversary project where we did the Grapes of Wrath and then partnered with OETA on the TV special and won an Emmy and all of that. So then we participated with the Steinbeck Festival because it moved online. So we kept trying to find ways of service to be online. Now we have put out a call and gotten in plays that we're judging now, online plays that we'll try to do Zoom readings of, and that will probably be after the first of the year, not right now, but we'll try and do that. And all of those things are interesting and creative endeavors. None of them is theater. So we are trying to do what we can do and distribute at least a little money to a few artists as we can keep working and to still be a meaningful service through our art to our community. But, you know, a theater without theater is a very hard theater.
It certainly is. Eric, you have participated in some of the online things, correct?
Yes, I've done like currently right now with a company in Virginia, an opera company in which I've sung and also am resident costume designer, opera in Williamsburg. We are currently in rehearsal for an online green screen production of Orfeo. We are making it up as we go along and teaching ourselves the entire process as we go along. I've been involved in webinars with various libraries in Virginia, talking about aspects of the art, aspects of opera. Every week for one of my churches, I sit in my house, I audio tape my tenor part, then I lip sync like on Drag Race to the vocal sound that I just made. And then there's a lovely guy named Luke who puts it all together, and we all watch it together on the stream on Sunday. So that is incredibly gratifying, because one of the things that I want to emphasize here is, yes, all of this is horrible, but honestly, on a personal level, as artists, my friends and I, you know, March through July, August, you're just kind of gobsmacked in that the thing that makes you who you are, the thing that gets you up during the day, the way you define yourself, you couldn't do that. Yeah. You couldn't leave your house. You're like, honestly, I'm of an age, thank goodness, I've been working steadily for 35 years, but I just lost a year of my career at the end of my career. I'm saying another 10 years maybe, but that's, that's a tenth of the last of my career that's gone. So dealing with this emotionally and having to do it on on a dime, all of a sudden, boom, everything changed, and we all have to adjust immediately.
And the Titanic plans, don't you find, Eric? Eric, I think it's obviously in the talking, you and I are at about the same timeline in our careers, which is to say we're both 39, and we have been for quite a while.
Well, so, I'm 42. I'm more honest.
There you go. I just celebrated my 39th birthday this last week. I did it for the 24th time because I'm always better with rehearsal. But you just start thinking, well, these are the last few years, and this is how I planned out. And many people may not know we earn our pension credits by working in the different years that we work, and all of that, all of your plans, decades in the making for retirement, for your family, and what you're going to do, all of them have been upended. And as Scott and I were saying a little earlier, that the Actors Equity with not only our pension, but more immediately, of course, our health insurance has now been impacted, and it's truly a titanic challenge for all of the artists, on top of the spiritual challenge of the fact that, as exactly as you say, this is the thing, this is our way of service, this is our way of giving to the world and sharing our talent. And suddenly, the one thing we could do, and the thing that would be so needed now in a moment of healing, to have the arts and have theater, the one thing we must do is not gather together because of the public health and the common good.
Yes.
It's an enormous challenge every single day.
I was talking to someone yesterday, and at church, as a matter of fact, and I said, the hardest thing for me in all of this has been not hugging. Yeah. Because you both know this about me. I love hugs. That's an important part of my life. And when I see people, I haven't hugged my mom since the first week in March. And she lives 20 minutes away from me. And that's so, yeah, we're all impacted in different ways. And I don't want to minimize those kinds of things because they are important, and especially people in the performing arts where you have no choice but you may not like everyone that you're working with, but you still have to function as a really tight team. And so
being cut off from your community,
yes,
was so incredibly devastating. And that people that you knew you were going to see, your friends who were your family, all of a sudden, before Zoom came around, it was weeks and weeks and months before you had any connection at all to the people who know you, who are on your same energy, who are on your same vibe, who get you, who love you, it's been, for example, I was just thinking, I know so many people, unfortunately too, financially, who have had to leave, who have gone home to live with family, who have gone across country. There was a very poignant image on Facebook once of the amount of pianos on eBay that are being sold for people to make quick cash. I mean, that made me cry. I just looked at this picture of like 12 pianos that were all for sale. That's what we deal with on a daily basis.
You have both talked about the impact to individuals within the artistic community. And Dom, one of the things that I think a lot of people don't realize is when CityRep puts on a production, it's not just the people who buy tickets that fuel the economy. It's your sponsors. It's the fact that so many people that go to the theater also go out and have dinner before or after. Some people travel to Oklahoma City from Dallas or from Western Oklahoma or from Tulsa, and they spend the night here. So
yes, the National Endowment for the Arts, in its most recent study, estimated that for every dollar spent on the arts, it generates $11 in economic impact. You have the restaurants and parking and babysitters. You don't even think of all the different ways. The printers for the program, the dry cleaners for the costumes. The arts are an incredibly important part of the economic infrastructure of every community. And of course, we're talking about New York, one of the greatest cities in the world. But what is New York without Broadway? Just Broadway, just the 40 Broadway theaters generates almost $2 billion a year in ticket sales. So you multiply that by 11, and then you add in things along those lines. The folks who come to New York for Broadway and come as tourists and drive that economy, it must be assisted. It must return. It's essential like that in every city in the country where there are professional arts. It's a huge economic driver, and it's a clean industry. And of course, that's all beyond what I realize I'm preaching to the choir. The essential importance of the arts to civilization.
You said that word essential. We've talked about essential workers being doctors and pharmacists and nurses. We've talked about grocery store workers as being essential in this time. But if we look at just simply the economic impact alone, those folks who make their living in the performing arts are also essential to the economy. And I need to say, from a personal standpoint, essential to my own mental health, because I love live performances. And now being in this desert that we all find ourselves in, it's a particular challenge. Gentlemen, this time has moved so quickly tonight. I'm going to just say, Don, we're not done with each other. We've got more work to do. And although you may be retiring next year, there's a lot to do before and after that. And thank you so much for being with us tonight, Don. Always, always a pleasure. And much love to you, my friend.
Thank you. And to both of you. Stay safe and be well.
Thanks, Don. Eric, it's so good to see you again. And I'm glad to know that, you really are keeping your spirit up. And it's not an easy one. And I know it's not, because I miss New York terribly. And part of, like you said, it's the hustle, it's the bustle, it's the meeting people randomly, or the people that you see every day on your commute to work, people at the bodega on the corner. And so now life is different for all of us, but I'm very happy that you're still hanging in there. You're still doing what's important to you. And I'm going to ask that you keep us posted on what's going on for you. And I know it's all going to be good. And thank you for your contributions to the arts. Not just in New York, but across the country. Thank you so much for being with us tonight, Eric.
Oh, my pleasure, Scott. I always say that the arts are the essential thing everyone needs, whether they know it or not. And it deserves respect, and it deserves the support of the government and the culture. Thank you so much for letting me be part of the conversation.
Thank you. Well, friends, I hope that this has spurred something within you to at least reach out and consider what's going on for professional artists in your community. If you have a little theater in your community theater, and you're missing that, let them know, because the needs still exist for funding, even as things start to return to normal, when and if they do. But I want to thank again my guests this evening, Don Jordan and Eric Lamp. What a great couple of guys to visit with this evening. And I hope that you've learned something. I hope that you've enjoyed this time that we've had to spend together. And I just want to remind you of this. Every nickel that you contribute to the Oklahoma Democratic Party, we use to help get Democrats elected to office up and down the ballot. We need your support like we haven't in a very long time. So I hope that you will consider making a donation at okdemocrats.org/donate. Until we come together again next Monday evening, I hope that you will take very good care of yourself and don't lose sight of our goals individually and collectively, because together I do know that we've got a brighter day ahead as long as we all keep rowing in the same direction. Take good care of yourself. Thanks for joining us. Have a good evening.